going on, everybody? This is James Graham, Master Facts Voice. You're here for another episode of the Facts Project podcast. Today, we have our very special guest, repeat guest. Jeff Haas is here to talk about Malek, Reigning Devil. We're now past the first issue. We're going into two and three. So we're getting into the sequels and the crust of this book. Thank you for being here, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. So now for listeners, meeting you for the first time, of course, I've known you for some time because we of course collaborate a lot. Who is Jeff Haas, and how did Reigning Devil first crawl into your brain?
All right, so my day job is I'm a special educator for English at a junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing comic books now for 16 years. I'm second generation comic book nerd from my father. So Malek Reigning Devil was an interesting story. There was a publisher looking for an anthology, a short story for their anthology, but it had a catch and needed to have a gun involved because it was called Gunmetal something or other. So I sat around and I had this great story for a story about this angel sent to hell. So I gave him a gun to make it work and say, "Here's my story." And long story short, the short story was fantastic. The publisher really liked it and basically said to me, "Can you make a series of this?" And I said, "Those are magic words. I'm glad to make more." I mean, every writer would love to hear a publisher say, "Can you make me more?" So he said, "Sure." Right. And so we made 2 issues together. We made three tie-in short comic books connected to the universe. Mm-hmm. And the publisher also made most of the third one. But things being as they are, the publisher decided to walk away from comic books and give me back my character and all my pages that were completed and said, "This is yours. Do what you want with it." And I said, "Kickstarter." And I immediately got it ready for a Kickstarter. I was like, let's get this going. So that's where Malek came about.
Definitely. Now, talking about the ideas of purgatory, you talk about the references towards Dante's Inferno, which everybody knows is like a godsend book. It's pretty much, as far as like fantasy and the mythos of angels and demons, that's kind of like the go-to for a lot of people. What basically manufactured you centering this around that type of book, almost kind of like pulling from topics from that particular book?
Well, Dante's Inferno is one of my favorite books of all time. If someone asked me, like, what's your favorite books of all time? Either it would be Dante's Inferno, Jurassic Park, or Lord of the Rings. I'm not 100% positive which one's which, depends on the day. But Dante's Inferno is right on that top tier of my favorite books. I love the visuals. I love the concept behind it all. Even though I'm not a religious person myself, I'm always fascinated by theology and mythology. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that inspired the book, Malek, is just the concept of Dante's Inferno and this exploration of hell and purgatory, from Paradiso, the episode of Purgatorio and the Paradiso. And I was like, I want to set something in this world that is, I mean, theology is sort of fantasy as well. I love fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to take Dante's Inferno and kind of build it around this character, Malek. Use some of the ideas of his visuals. Some characters from Purgatorio pop up in my Purgatory story as well. So I mean, they're highly connected, and the inspiration is anyone who knows Divine Comedy is going to see the inspiration behind it all.
Right.
Only difference is, unlike in Dante, where Dante is going through the circles of hell to kind of find redemption, Malek's is a mission of revenge against his creator. But beyond that, there's definitely influence back and forth, and also like from Spawn as well. I mean, Spawn is a huge influence.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love Spawn. This might be a deep dig for anyone in the 90s, but if you loved Image and Extreme Studios for Rob Liefeld, there was a story called Extreme Sacrifice where Chapel kills himself and goes to hell and eventually becomes the new devil. It's totally influenced by that as well. So like every good writer, I stole all the good stuff and decided to put it in a blender and see what popped out, which was Malek Reigning Devil.
That's amazing. Now, when we're talking about like the title alone is kind of provocative, because what does Reigning Devil, the accentuation of it, mean in context to the story?
All right, that's a fantastic question. So basically, there's a couple of things that occur in the preview story that unfortunately shows up in the anthology, but we have a summary of it in the beginning of each issue.
Right.
Basically, what happens is Malek is God's wrath on earth. He's the Hamashah, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but basically that's a real term, basically for God's wrath. This is a special type of angel. God decides to send Malek to hell to kill Lucifer. All right,
Mm,
that'll be further explained as the series goes on. But basically, the idea is that Lucifer is a schemer. He was going to attack heaven eventually, and God decided he wanted more of a puppet in hell, so he sent Malek. When the rule I created for the story, so it's not a real rule, but the one I also made for the story is that the one who kills the devil becomes the devil. Okay,
mm.
so the moment Malek kills Lucifer with his angel killing gun, obviously from the story, he becomes the new devil in hell. And what he needs to do is, as story says, he needs to reign in hell and basically take over the circles. Because once you become the devil, it's not like every other demon is like, oh, all right, I'm good now. You're in charge. God has willed it so. That's not how demons work, right? The Lucifer is gone, and even you call yourself the devil all you want, but you got to earn that title. You can't just have it.
Right.
So Alec has to work through the circles of hell, conquer the other demon lords across the other circles of hell, and basically take control. So he literally needs to become the reigning devil in hell before he's able to move on to his war on heaven.
Now, when we're talking about the themes that basically you're trying to incorporate in this, it's a combination. Am I seeing a lot of power, corruption, redemption, and even identity? Which one do you think surprised you the most while writing?
I think a lot of it had to do with the idea of his agency. I mean, obviously, revenge is right on the. It's like the surface theme. You know,
Okay.
it's right there. It's obviously there. It was obviously gonna be the driving force of the story. But as I was exploring the story, the idea of agency and I think even a longing for forgiveness found its way into the story more and more. And I realized, as much as I felt the anger in Malik, and I felt that his drive for revenge and his drive to basically prove himself to God, I felt as I was reading the story that there would be some, no matter how much anger you feel, you kind of want acceptance from so you can say your creator, you can say your parents, whoever, I mean,
Yeah.
however, it goes a long way that you don't want to be viewed as a failure. You don't want to be viewed as a disappointment, right? So underneath all that anger and that hate is a devastated individual who's like, why did you betray me? Why did you what was about me that you hated so much that you damned me to hell, right? What was that? And I felt that was an undercurrent into the character and a little bit of a weakness and a flaw in him and made him a little more vulnerable by having that there.
Right.
And then again, the idea of ancient as well is I realized for the first time in his entire existence, Malekith has to think for himself.
Mm.
When you're an angel, you do what you're told. There's a famous one of my favorite movies of all time. It's The Prophecy with Christopher Walken.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's such a good movie, and the character Simon, played by Eric Stoltz, says, "We do what we're told. That's who we are. You do what you're told." I realized that's what Malik was. He did what he was told. He was a hammer. He was sent to do something, and as a hammer, he just did it. He doesn't spend a lot of time in his existence thinking about the why. What do I want? What is right? What is wrong? If God commands it, it automatically make it right. And I realized that for the first time ever, he now has to have agency over his life, his own direction, determine who he actually wants to be.
Yeah.
So that became an undercurrent as well that I explored. As I was writing, I was like, this is a thing. I want to build this in. And so I started building more and he became more complex of a character.
Yeah. When you almost seem as like an obedient character, does it then also take place that obviously in this type of sense with the angels and devils mythos, you're looking at the characters to be morally messy.
Yep.
With now from that standpoint, outside of Malik, well, no, we can get back to Malik. As far as like the heart of the story, why would you think people would emotionally invest in him? Because he does feel corrupted and he feels like he's doing this just off of orders alone.
Mm.
But necessarily, does he figure his way out of it?
So, I mean, there's a lot of things I think it's hard to probably get readers to connect an emotional level with a character like Malik as because they are so beyond what we, at least on the surface, what we assume is existence, right? I mean, he's an angel. We're not angels. I mean, even if you're deeply religious, just know you're not going to be God's wrath.
Yeah,
Angel of wrath. That's probably not where we're headed when we die. Even if you did believe in heaven and if you did believe in angels, you're not going to believe the story. He's powerful enough to be the king of hell. I mean, that's not outside our normal experience, right? Of course it
right.
is. But I
Yeah.
think we all deal with issues of our existence, who we are, who do we want to be.
Mhm.
And I think Malik is very much the same way. And and I mean, it may just be me, but I do think all of us do wonder about our nature of ourselves. You
Yeah.
know, is this who I'm supposed to be? And we're all sons of mothers and fathers, regardless if you ever met them or not. You probably have some guard in your life that played that role. And as you grow up, or especially in your teens, but as you're in your 20s and 30s, whatnot as well, you think to yourself, how do they see me?
Yeah.
Do Am I what they wanted me to be, right? Or would they be proud of what I became, right? We all have that thought. And Malik, on some level, underneath all that anger, is that thought of, was I what my creator wanted me to be? And I
Mm.
think that's something we can all identify with, maybe not at the level of an angel and God, because I mean, once again, some very religious people may argue that they do have a direct conversation with God, and that's their belief, and that's fine. But most of us probably don't think we're in a direct conversation with God on a regular basis.
Right.
Most of us, I would imagine, don't. Malik does have more of that connection. So it's not a direct one-on-one with people, but the allegory is there.
Okay.
And it's not the difference between the ability to have Malik talk to his creator or us talking to maybe our parent or just an adult who we looked up to for growing up. We all have that person, maybe a mentor, something that we would go to and say, maybe it's not a parent for some of us, but it'd be like, hey, you guided me in my life. This is how it turned out. How do you feel? Was I disappointed in you? Are you disappointed in me for doing this? That kind of thing. And I think that's all part of it. I think we all had that part too, where we realized that the one we looked up to, like as a kid, we probably, as a boy, I know I looked up to my father, and I still do. A lot of boys do. But as you grow, you realize they're not perfect, right?
Right.
And you start noticing their issues and flaws like that. And I think that's also what Malik is looking at, going, this being that I worshipped as this perfect thing, look what it did. It's not perfect. Look at it, what it did to his creation. And I think that's kind of stuff that people can identify with. And I hope that they do. And I hope that adds layers to their enjoyment, because a good story isn't just about the character, it's about you enveloping the character, no, within the character, and you living vicariously through that character. And but so to ask those questions that character is asking. I think readers should be able to do that.
Right. Now, the on the other side of things, the conflict that's pretty much going to take place. The other characters that are pretty much involved in this, that basically Malik is tasked to go against.
Mhm.
Who are they? And is there any of those characters who started small, more than likely in this book, but took over the entire story that you were building?
Well, one character that I must admit, I don't think I originally had the plan to bring the character back, Lucifer. Now,
Mm.
Lucifer was in that first story, and I think he's in 2 pages of the tie-in book before he's killed. His dialogue is crisp, it's cold, it's fascinating, and with pat myself on the back, in very few lines, I managed to have a character who could cut right through Malik, right at the core of who he is. I was
Right.
like, damn, that character was killed off way too damn fast. And then I realized I needed to bring him back. So I brought in, so that when I thought about Purgatory as being a place I needed to visit, I came up with the idea of bringing Lucifer in to kind of talk to Malik and have that dialogue continue. And the more I thought about that dialogue, I'm telling you, the dialogue with Lucifer is phenomenal. And not just because I wrote it, but because it's just the character of Lucifer is such a rich character.
Yeah.
Once again, talking about influences, Paradise Lost. What a fantastic freaking book that part with Lucifer in it is fantastic.
Hmm.
Lucifer as well in Sandman, obviously Neil Gaiman and this thing, but you can't deny that the Season of Mist is a hell of a story. You
Hmm.
can hate the guy, and I do now, but it's a hell of a story with their Lucifer, beautifully crafted. Mike Carey, when he created his Lucifer series, 75 issues, beautiful character. So he was too rich of a character to drop, and when that Lucifer story pops up again in Purgatory and he shows up again, it's fantastic. It's a really good story. Um, I don't think there's a few characters in it that became way more interesting the more I wrote it, like Gabriel. Such an ass. He's such a fantastic ass that sarcastic and just wonderfully done. I really appreciate what I did with him. Um, Michael shows up later on. He's going to appear, and he's a good character. There's a few, this it is. I think it was less maybe one individual character that grabbed the book and brought to me from Malik, because Malik is such a dominating personality in the story.
Yeah.
It was the action itself that I think I had an issue with trying to stop. Because it was such a, it was like a snowball going down an avalanche, right? It kept building up steam and become bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was
Yep.
like, And at some point, I had to hit my brakes and go, stop. The action needs to stop. And I need
Mm,
to develop more character with this guy. And I
right.
think that was what my danger was in the story was not any one other character, because Malek said is very dominating of a character, but to slow down the action enough to start building the character and story back up again.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I had to kind of like pull in the reins and kind of reassess where I was headed for a few pages here and there.
Now, if I remember, probably like the first brand of literature that I read to where you almost saw Lucifer in a humanizing condition to where Paradise Lost
Yeah.
was, to where you looked at him not as like the demon or better yet like the beast that you saw in pictures or better yet the visuals that you were given. It was
Mm.
more like this person is talking to me in the most eloquent conversation.
Mm.
And when you talk about how you basically bringing that to screen, and I have to agree with you, yes, the dialogue of how, or better yet, how they brought about the character of Lucifer in Sandman is almost in the
Right.
same type of grasp and direction. Now, and on the flip side of that, the way you talk about Michael and Gabriel, people are looking at them to be these angelic beings, but no, these are archangels.
Yeah.
They're warriors. So, in order to even capture that, has to be a task all its own.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I ripped off the best. Like when we see the movie The Prophecy, how it depicts angels is wonderful, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's complexity to them, but they're not good guys. They're all kind of asses on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that line. I'm gonna butcher the line, but it's a character in The Prophecy quoting the Bible, where it says, "Even now in heaven, there's angels carrying savage weapons."
Right.
They are killers. They're not your friend. They are dicks on their own level. They are characters that live in such, not only do they live in a paradise, so they automatically just think they're superior to most things that are on the planet, but at a power level so far beyond and removed from those that they're meant to be in charge of that is, I mean, once again, it'd be like you in charge of an ant farm. Do you really think of yourself the same level then as the ants? I think angels would view themselves the same way as almost humanity or anything, or especially the demons, which is we're so far above you. How can you expect me to exist on the same level or talk at the same level as you? So the dialogue has to be. I had to be very careful with the dialogue because you can't make them sound modern. I can't be like, "Yo, Malek, what you gotta be careful. You gotta be rate them." So I kind of write them in older vernacular, slightly older vernacular, very formal in how their speech is. But I try to make sure what the characters were good. Like Gabriel speaks in a very specific way. He speaks in a way that's kind of sarcastic. It's just and it just works. Michael, because he's closer to God and he still is the top angel. I had him more as a what Malik maybe would have been like as far as someone who is 100% um, devoted to his God still. Maybe still over, he's intelligent, arrogant, but definitely devoted. So I kind of had him there. Lucifer, I decided to go with an idea that is in TV show Supernatural with their Lucifer originally. The
Mm-hmm.
idea that, at least in the first 5 seasons, that Lucifer isn't a liar. He may stretch this truth. He may his words may have multiple meanings, but he's not a liar. He's not someone who has to overplay anything.
Right.
Or like the devil has to have like this fire and be yelling and screaming like I'm evil. That's not the devil. He doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably one of the most powerful characters in all of existence. He doesn't have to overplay his part, so you can underwrite him because his very existence elevates that and gives him just that little more horror to his character, just because you know who he is. So I decided you can kind of play him down a little bit. You can play
Yeah.
him very analytical, cold, calculating. Every line that he has to have meaning. Every word has to have meaning, and more than one meanings because he's sly. He's not gonna lie to you, but everything he says means more than one thing potentially, or can be read more than one way. And I think that's how Lucifer had to be, and that's kind of how I viewed him. A character who's just insanely intelligent, insanely with good with subterfuge and plotting and scheming and things. But at the end of the day, just cold. And it's like I said, when you read Purgatory, you'll see where I went with the character, and I think it's really kind of interesting
Mm.
throughout. And I really think people would get a huge kick on what he does. And him and Malik had some great scenes together. It's one of the few times where I decided, at least for a while, I didn't want to play up the situation. I played it down.
Yeah.
So it's more, there's a Star Trek ishness to the interaction where it's more dialogue and philosophy versus hardcore action and
Yeah.
that kind of interactions. So it's very interesting where these characters talk when they talk to each other. You kind of get a sense of who they are. You have Lucifer, the schemer, Malek, who's not a schemer, but he's not stupid, and you kind of see how they kind of play off each other. It's really well done, I think. And it's my story, I think
For
it is.
sure.
But I'm usually pretty good at being unbiased when I look at something, being objective, and I objectively think that's a great interaction between the two.
Now, the character of Malik,
Yep.
um, was this something that basically you conjured in your head, or was this something that you basically pulled from another bit of source material and created Malik from that?
Malik was an idea that came from, sorry, that came from a concept, which was the idea of, as someone who is, I will say, most basically an atheist. It could be an agnostic, but an atheist, and I still always have a question about theology. Always have it, always think that's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
So the idea of what God could be or would be, especially giving different the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, that kind of things. And I kind of came up with what of God, what God could be like, and out of that concept came the angel Malik on what would an angel be like under him. So
Mm,
Malik kind of came out from a philosophical question that gave a tangible character out of it.
wow.
I mean, when you think about like, is he inspired by many things? Sure. I mean, there's a Spawn aspect to him. Spawn, who's when you read Spawn, anyone who does, Spawn doesn't say much. He doesn't have to. He's a
Right.
character usually of action. He does plan, but he's a quiet type character. He's more what he says matters, and it's usually internal, a couple or in capture to himself. He doesn't have to say. He's not very verbose. He shouldn't. Doesn't have to be. There's no reason for him to be. And Malek has a little bit of that, where he's not a verbose character. You can tell he's intelligent by the things he says and does, but he's not verbose. Um, then I borrowed here and there from other sources, but there wasn't one character I pulled him from, and he didn't obviously spring out from the ether. And it was like, hey, there he is. It was
Yeah.
more of a concept needing a character, and he built out of the concept or the question. Let's say more of a question than a concept, which is what is the nature of God? What is the nature of creation? Malek pulled out from my argument of the kind of like counter argument to what that would be like.
Now, also even outside of that, would you say that the genre that basically this is built in, would you say it's more so supernatural, or better yet, maybe just an extension of the angel mythos, or would you conjure up something different?
I think there's certain elements to it that are a combination of many things. There's definitely a horror comic element to it, definitely the idea of horror. Um, I think the thing about mythology and theology is that it very closely attaches to fantasy.
Yeah.
And there's definitely the fantasy elements to it, as far as exploring the world. But instead of elves and dwarves, it's angels, demons, creatures in purgatory, things of that nature that I'm exploring, like in
Hmm.
that world building. Um, so I would say definitely horror, maybe and fantasy, and obviously there's obviously the biblical themes as well. So that mythology that weaves through it. I mean, any good story has elements of mythology attached to it.
Of
Because let's
course.
face it, the earliest stories were mythology, at least to their people. They were mythology. Go all the way back to Gilgamesh. He's mythology to their people. I mean, they might have believed he was real when they first read those stories to each other. I think it was Sumerians. I think it was Sumerians.
Hmm.
But historical context makes it mythology. Religion is not that different than mythology. It's just a difference of belief. If you believe it's real, it's religion. If you believe it's not, it's mythology.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of also a view of Malek, which is taking the idea of fancy elements of the Bible and these other theological type stories, giving a horror twist to it, and and assembling a functioning story out of all that.
Now, issues 1 through 3. Would you say for the most part that it's like a standalone story, or is it the beginning of something bigger?
Basically, I would say issues 1 and 2 definitely connect to each other because that's the full sort of taking over hell. Purgatory, I would argue, can be read on its own to some extent, but it makes only makes sense in it makes more sense in context reading the other stories of it, so you know how he got there with Lucifer, though the summary is there. In total, this was a 6 issues miniseries. 2 issues in Hell, 1 issue in Purgatory, 2 issues in Heaven, and then there's an epilogue. The epilogue is his own beast with Malek that kind of wraps up the whole story. And I can't give away too much of that without giving away what happens after the 4 issues 4 and 5. But
Right.
it's a 6 issues miniseries with 3 tie-in stories that connect from a that Malik does show up in, but exists in his world, and you can see how it connects into the influence of Malik. So there's like little tidbits of characterization to Malik that exists within, but he's not the main character of any of them.
Mm.
But you can get a deeper insight by reading them. But all things being equal, it's going to be a 6 issue miniseries. The first 3 are like I said, a set of 2. The first Purgatory is 36 pages, so there's a lot of story there. And like I said, it's on its own. It exists as a there's a story arc to it.
Yeah.
Malik is going to see like he's going to go see Lucifer, but it can but you to make it for it to make the most sense, you do want the first 2.
Mm.
But it's a 6 issue miniseries in total.
But the Kickstarter itself is going to be issues 2 and 3. What
Uh,
exactly?
1, 2, and 3.
One, 2, and 3. I'm
1,
sorry.
2, and 3.
Now, essentially, issue 1. What exactly did people miss aside from the death of Lucifer himself? What do you think people missed that they're going to be seeing going forward in the next 2 issues?
Well, there's Gabriel as an interesting character that shows up later on, especially in issue 5. He shows up again as kind of wrap up his story.
Hmm.
You get a sense of one thing that you have in the first that goes on in the first 2 issues that lead into the third is that Malik is becoming corrupted by experience in hell. His form
Okay.
is changing through his experience at being in hell. And you can see as the story moves on, him becoming more and more corrupted physically by that exposure.
Is it
In
like
one
a
issue,
physical manifestation almost?
yep, quite literally. He literally goes from his angel form to start seeing, like for instance, his wings become more bat-like. His hands become more like these demonic claw-looking things. He
Mm.
literally starts become taken on external what's happening to him internal. So we can not even say exposure to hell, but symbolically to live that long in hate changes you. You
Right.
can't be the person that you are containing that much hate and not have that change who what you are and your being, right? So he's changed by it. So you're by not having the first issue, you lose a little bit of that transition as he's starting to change a little bit as well.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not it's more and also more of like exploration of who Sir God is as well as his kind of his not psychic but his like number one. So there's a little bit in there, but for the most part, it's his change is missing on Gabriel, missing on Sir God, and missing some of the build up of his characterization over time.
Mm. Now, currently, the campaign is live, and it's going to be up with for the next 3 weeks.
Um,
Correct?
March, I think it ends March 3rd or 4th, something like that.
Okay, so yeah, about like close to three
Yeah, there's
weeks.
23 days left. Wait.
Now, if there was a soundtrack playing sonically for Raining Devil, what's playing?
Well, if you watch the video, I found this video when I was it's no copyright music on YouTube, and I made it, and there's a video that's you know how YouTube has those videos you can put on as like your main image.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was perfect for Matt. I was listening to it, I was like, holy crap, this is the video for this. But if you want other ones as well, stealing other inspirations, I'm trying to remember the name of the song from Nine Inch Nails from the Crow soundtrack.
Mm.
When you see the crow, he's running down on the rooftops, and I think it's something like "They Keep Calling Me." I can't remember the name of the song, but it's from Nine
I
Inch
think I
Nails.
remember the scene.
Yeah, it's brilliant. That
He's
would be a
jumping from
perfect.
rooftop to rooftop
Yes,
as the cops are chasing him.
that'd be a perfect one as well. Um, there's Marilyn Manson stuff that would put there. There's Man That You Fear would be a nice little one in there as well potentially. Also, which one is it? Tourniquet would be another good one. So anything that's really hard ass metal rock is a great soundtrack to Malek because it is a metal comic. You know, I mean, when you see the art and the violence, there's a hard metal edge to the story.
Mm.
So if you like something like Nine Inch Nails, even in Korn or stuff like that, you're going to see how you're going to feel this in the comic. The comic book is like the Nine Inch Nails of comic books. It's hardcore.
Mm. Now we've talked before because of course we talked about Terminus,
Yeah.
which was of course a sci-fi story that you basically put together and that was fabulous. Now with this particular story, what do you think was the most devilish part of making this particular comic?
Ooh. Patience. Patience is a bitch. So basically, and I didn't even realize how much time had gone by. So this story, I believe, was originally created maybe 8 years ago,
Hmm.
with the first issue, the second issue. I noticed that the Kickstarter for issue number two, I think it was 2019,
Yeah.
6 years ago. So it's been 6 years between issues two and three, as my publisher had sat on it for a long time and not really moved too much on it. If it was something devilish, that patience to just be like and to trust and all that, that's a killer. That's one of those things that just kind of eats at you a little bit. So I would say that's the most devilish aspect. It's just trying to be patient in a situation where you're like, it's going to be next month already, right? Next month, and then years go by, and you still have to hang on to that. That's there's pain there. So I would say
Mm.
that's the devilish part.
Now, if this particular story was were done in, I'm going to say, the aspect of an animated feature in Malek Reigning Devil, who voices Malek?
God, um, I think he's still alive. Hopefully, Keith David from who wrote
Keith
voice
David.
Juan. That
Yeah,
guy's voice is fucking crazy.
still alive.
Yeah, I was hoping he would. I couldn't quite recall, but he'd be perfect because I mean, because the one I was thinking about was him or Tony Todd. But like one of those voices that's just this deep, menacing voice would
Hmm.
just be perfect for it. If that guy wants to voice even like a line of dialogue in the damn script, I'll fucking pay him. The guy is so good. But I would say Keith David, if possible.
Oh, excellent. Now for listeners that are on the fence, why should they back Malek Reigning Devil today?
All right. Well, I mean, there's many different reasons. From a selfish standpoint, you're helping me realize a dream that I've been holding on to for a very long time, and I want to see this realized. So that's more of just like an altruistic reason. From a selfish reason, for the individual, the story is good. It's different than what else is out there. Even though I reference some other stories that exist, it's different in its own way. The character has depth to it that is not always common in comic books.
Hmm.
The art is phenomenal, and it drops you into this world where it transports you in a way that other stories don't. This isn't I mean, I love Batman, but I mean, Gotham City still is like Earth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This transport you in a way where very few fantasy stories can take you because the artist Juan Almiron is so good and he gives us so much detail that you can explore this. It feels like you can explore this world. It feels like it's like almost like a video game where you can just plug it in and go like real world exploring to this world. That's how deep he makes it. It's fantastic.
Mm.
So if you want to be transported, you want a story that's both intelligent but also hardcore that you can enjoy on the level like a John Wick movie where it's just this nonstop focus action. But you also want on one hand, you can just enjoy on that level, but you want something you can also then dive in later and really get into some deep philosophical questions about many different subjects. It's there for you as well, so you can read it twice in both ways, enjoy it different ways. I think it's something that readers can trust, and when you know where the story is going, because I do obviously because I wrote it, it just gets more interesting, and the stories and the questions get bigger and more fascinating. And there's story beats that are going to happen later on that I want to get to so badly, and I think the readers will enjoy this journey. It's a hell of a journey. I mean, it really is.
For sure. Now, if people wanted to get in contact you and get to learn more about the book. As a matter of fact, before I get into that, the creative team, because you mentioned one early, a little bit ago.
Yeah.
If you could shout out the rest of the creative team.
Sure. The colorist goes by Aster Design and Illustration. That's
Mm.
the colorist. The letterer is Keith Gleason, who's from Kid Switch and a bunch of other stuff. He also does Indie Comic Relay. He's my letterer.
Yeah.
We have a variant cover by Dennis Valencia, who's like the king of variant
Yes.
covers. That guy is freaking crazy. The cover he did is with Gluttony in the background. Oh my god, it's so good. You know,
Oh,
uh,
Celestial Knight, right?
yeah, he's such a nice as well. Yep, those
Yep.
are Homebrewed Comics. That's the guy. And like I said, he has always does one variant cover for me and everything I do. And he's like the nicest guy humanly possible. His covers are always they just are mostly like perfectly like encapsulate the story. Big shout outs to Dennis Valencia. That guy is fucking awesome.
Excellent. Now, if people wanted to follow you, obviously, you have your podcast, Traversing the Stars, as well.
Yeah.
Where could they support the project right now? Of course, on Kickstarter. And if they wanted to get to know about other projects that you've done, where could they find it?
All right. Like you said, Kickstarter, please back me, please. Need it. As you said, there's also Traverse the Stars on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook under Jeff Haas. Obviously, that's my name. You can find Malek and Devil as a group as well. You can also join the End of All Terminus page because End of All Terminus has not been given up on. Issue 3 should be out for Kickstarter, and I think in May. Probably, I'm looking at May right now, so I haven't given up on that story either. It's just this one fell in my lap, and I want to make sure I move forward before while things are hot. I just got it, but End of Terminus is still in the going to happen as well. You can find me on Blue Sky under Traversing the Stars. You can find me on Instagram under Vector Comics and Traversing the Stars. Let's see what else you can find me. I don't really use X anymore, but yeah. So I'll say you can find me anywhere where you look up Traversing the Stars on Google search. You'll locate me. I'm around, but I'm not hiding. You can find me on any platform there is.
Excellent. Jeff, I appreciate you doing this with me. Thank you.
Totally my pleasure, sir.
For sure. So for everybody here at the Facts Project podcast, Jeff Haas, Malek Reigning Devil is now live on Kickstarter for the next 3 weeks. It will be ending this campaign at the beginning of March. So please go out there and get that. And we will see you guys next time. So for everybody here at the Facts Project, we are